You're listening to the Monday Night Community Show with Daniel on BRFM.
This is the Daniel Monday Night Community Show on demand through YouTube. Thank you very much for choosing to listen to us through this method. If you'd like to keep up to date with when I add new interviews, then subscribe to this channel. I'm going to be joined live in the studio with James Apps and Peter Apps. They're from the Sheppey and Sittingbourne Writers Group. As always, it's good to catch up with you again.
Yeah, thank you. Nice to be here again.
I was wondering, before we move on to the areas we're going to cover this evening, if you could just introduce yourselves firstly.
Right, well, I'm Peter Apps.
And I'm James Apps.
And we're no relation. Carry on that. Okay. Well, I'm mainly a science fiction writer. I've got another book coming out later on this year, which maybe you'd like to talk about sometime. But more importantly tonight, after my first book was released, my publisher wanted a second one, but then he decided he didn't like it because there wasn't enough sex in it. And I thought, well, no, I'm not going to go down that route. I'll leave that to the 50 Shades of Grey type people. And so I started my own publishing company, which is now part of the Sheppey Writers Group. And between us all, we're producing a book festival for Sheppey this year.
You've just about said it all, haven't you? Really?
Have I really? Oh, right.
Okay, I'm James Apps. I'm chairman of the Sheppey Writers Group. We call it Sittingbourne and Sheppey Writers Group, but lately we've just changed it to Sheppey Writers Group because people from Sittingbourne seem to have rejected us. But as Peter said, and it's just odd that we're the same name, but we are no relation. That's correct, right? Okay. And I'm a writer. I write short stories and science fiction. But I do like a little comedy, even though my stories are rather dark. But I prefer dark comedy anyway. So you asked the meaning of life once, weren't you?
Yeah, 42.
Yeah, 42, right. So that's where I come from, okay. This is my idea. And I've got a book coming up soon, which is called, it's a trilogy, the Seradian Chronicles, and that has got something of the ilk of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy style in it. In fact, I copied quite a lot of not the ideas, but the style of humour from it, and then changed it completely to suit myself. So that's me anyway. I'm also a poet.
Yeah, which is how we've met you a couple of times, I think, at Artists in the Woods when you've done some bits for us.
Yeah, that's right. We should be there again this year too, I hope.
Well, I know you wanted to talk, I think, a little bit more about how you're publishing your own books. Now, you've been publishing a book with someone in particular as well, I think.
Ah, yes. Right, at the last Promenade launch, I spoke to our local MP, Gordon Henderson, and I said to him, are you still interested in writing your book? So he said, of course, what book? And came up, he said, actually, I've got quite a lot of short stories I'd like to put into a book. And so he said, well, what's the idea? So I told him about TELP and what we were doing, publishing our own books. And told him that we're trying to get as professional as we can, even though we're a non-profit organisation. We plough everything back into the Sheppey Writers Group if we can. And he said, well, that sounds like a good idea, because he was approached by a large company to publish his writing. So he gave us his first collection of short stories, which is called Pigeon Pie and Other Tasty Tales. I'll continue with this, because what I've done, as you can see, not the listeners, of course, but I'm showing this to Daniel so you can get some idea what we've done.
Yeah.
The cover was designed by my colleague here, Peter Apps. It was also formatted by Peter and edited mostly by myself and by Gordon Henderson, of course. And on the back we have the TELP logo, and the some idea what the story's about.
And we were just talking to them about how they've been publishing their own books, and I was hoping, Peter, if you could tell us just what's involved in publishing.
I suppose there's three main parts. You've got to get the book cover organised. The book's got to be properly edited. And you've got to have all the sort of administration sorted out, like the ISBN number and what have you. The cover, when I first went into self-publishing, I was telling everybody who'd bother to listen, I would never design my own cover. It's too fiddly, it's too complicated. But as James said, somehow I ended up designing Gordon's cover. I've designed the last two covers of my books, and it's working out. The other part, the editing, that is the most important thing so far as I'm concerned. Usually an author gets to a certain stage where he can't get any further, and the editor is the first person, other than the writer, who actually sees the book, and usually almost always, he finds the mistakes that the author missed. If you look on Amazon, the e-books, there's an awful lot of cheap books on there, and the reason they're cheap is because nobody ever bothers to edit them. And you can tell after the first page, this is a completely amateurish... The story might be good, but the presentation is terrible. And this is the thing we are trying to avoid. We are trying to produce real professional quality books.
And I know, James, you're next going to read some bits from a particular book, I think.
Yeah, actually, what I'm going to do is one of the things which Peter and I discovered, in fact any reader of any book discovers when they first look at them, is the blurb on the back. And of course, you can turn over on rustling page now and read the first page, and if that catches your attention, then away you go. Now I'm going to start with the first line, then I'm going to read the back of the book. This is from Pigeon Pie. This is the first story in Gordon Henderson's book. It was New Year's Eve, and Pamela decided the cemetery was a fitting place in which to watch the old year prepare to die. Now that's a nice line. I like that line. It catches your interest and starts off the title story. Now, what you don't know is what the rest of the story is going to be like. So the back has to be written reasonably well. So this is what we managed to come up with. I hope you like it. Pigeon Pie and Other Tasty Tales is as varied as it is thought-provoking, with no real theme except that each has a slightly twisted tail, which obviously goes with the idea of a bird having a tail. The book contains stories of the supernatural, such as Elise, The Feast of Bessie Brandon, and The Bogeyman, which is scary. Whilst equally as dark are the psychological vampire story Bloodline, The New Year's Resolution and The Birthday, both of which look at the difficult subject of suicide. Return of Anna Pavlova is a sad little tale of shattered dreams. In contrast, Cross Lines is lighter and more amusing. Now, just a word about Return of Anna Pavlova. This is when you read some of the other stories. You look at you read this one and you see how touching that story was, and I believe it was one of his most successful stories in the past. Then there's the Christmas story, The Mummy Angel, The Night the Music Died, and The Vision, which are stories about hope and resurrection, and different too are The Grotto and The Winterton Diamond Mystery, which are straightforward detective stories. And so, to Pigeon Pie, after which the volume is named, like The Talking Goose, which is set in medieval Europe, that's another one of the stories involved in it, it can best be described as a bizarre tale, lightly spiced with humour. And as we say, enjoy all these tasty tales by Gordon Henderson, but take them with a pinch of salt. Now what we've tried to do there is try to give you, I've waffled in the middle, but try to give you a touch of the beginning, so you're attracted by the content from the first paragraph, and then sort of try to finish it off so that it sounds interesting. Hopefully it is. In fact, actually, it's a well-written book.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say that must be the most difficult thing, when you've got a book. How do you pick that bit that's going to capture people's interest in such a small, really, space, I suppose?
Yeah, and that's the art of it. I mean, it's very difficult to do, but that's one of the things we concentrate on, and we're trying to be professional. I don't know about you, Peter, but I was starting to understand how difficult it is to write these back.
That's right.
Blurbs,
Yes.
And synopsis for the story as well.
James will talk about this more later, but we're holding a competition to find a new writer, and the first part of the competition is to produce a synopsis. Now, we're happy with 1,000 words, but if you've ever tried writing a book and someone says, "What's it about?" and all of a sudden you've got to condense it into a few words, and you start realising how difficult it is. Yeah. But those few words on the back cover, the few words in the synopsis for the competition, they really are the most important part of the book, because without them grabbing someone's attention, it'll never get written. It'll get written, but it'll never get read.
Yeah, people will ignore them, and they just say, "Oh yeah, okay." Yeah.
Sheppey Writers Group been talking all about how they're publishing their own books, but we're now going to move on to talk about a writing competition to find an author.
Yeah. Well, Daniel, this is something we decided we'd like to give it a try, and we're in search of an author, and that is somebody who's not been published, would like to be published in hardback and is it Amazon? Is it?
Well, e-books, Kindle,
and e-books and Kindle and such.
Yeah.
And news. We're going to pay for it. We hope. Now, actually, what we want one author who's not been published before, would like some help to get through to the point of actually publishing a good quality book. And so the competition is for this year. It's starting now. It's open now. You have to go to the website, which we'll give you shortly, to find out how to do it. It's fairly easy. It's not a problem, and we're not monsters or anything. But we can only afford to do it for one author this year. Hopefully, if we continue and do this book festival, which we're doing for 2014, we might be able to do it the following years with a few more authors. But the whole idea is to start somebody off and guide them through the publishing process, and without cost to them, except that they have to actually do the work. For that, we're going to be pretty ruthless in selecting our author, but don't panic. All you have to do is show us a synopsis of your work, submit some of the chapters of your work, show us that you can actually finish it, tell us a little bit about yourself, and keep your fingers crossed. What we will do for you is we will help you, providing you have written the story to a good standard. We will help you get it to the next standard up. In other words, consult with you. We will also help you with the cover, and of course get it printed for you. At this stage, Peter, can you explain to us how we started off with the printer?
Well, this went back to when I was publishing Time Askew, and I was looking around. I found one interesting firm up north, but they wanted space to dump a pallet in the distributor's yard. Well, I'm not that big a scale yet, so I carried on looking, and finally I came across Orbital Print in Sittingbourne. Now, they're a big firm, but they quite rightfully say that they're a family firm, and they are extremely helpful. anybody who wants to get something published can phone them for any sort of technical details, and they will do everything they can to help. As part of the book festival this year, we might even be arranging a trip to go, so that prospective authors can go over and see how it's all done.
Okay, thanks, Peter. That was great. So, you might have an image of a garage full of unsold books. Well, this doesn't happen. What actually happens is that, like, I published my Tales from the Dark Side, and with the Pigeon Pie we were talking about earlier on, and you can just order as many books as you want. You can order 5, 10, 15, 20. Once you've got your initial print run, of course, which is, you'll need about 20 for your initial print run. We offer the new author 20, but we will actually get 26, so that 6 of them can be sent off to the libraries for registration, which is, I believe, a legal requirement.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. Now, we have a workshop coming up on May the 27th at the Abbey Room Healthy Living Centre in Sheerness, time between 7 and 9 p.m. This is to help get to know authors. Anybody's welcome to come along, talk about their book. We will be concentrating on working on synopsis and the presentation of the book. What you actually want from it. Now, I think we ought to tell you the website. That's correct, is it?
Yep.
Yeah, which is TAUP, that is taup.co.uk. Just click on that and you get all the information you want. You can see what we produce, you can see our books, you can see some of our ugly mugs, and you can get as much information as we have to offer, and particularly about the competition, so that you understand exactly what is required. It's not difficult, and it should be fun.
Yeah. Just one point, we were talking about printers. All our books are also available on Amazon. That is through the Amazon publishing company called CreateSpace, but that is very much, that is published very much like you publish Kindle or other e-books. The end result might be a hard copy, but as I say, I'm losing the thread of what I'm saying, but what I'm trying to say is Orbital will produce the hard copies which you want for yourself, and Amazon can supply the hard copies for the rest of the world.
Yeah. Although if you have an order, perhaps from somebody, who, like, say, a local bookstore or something like that, you can quite easily order them from Orbital yourself and either deliver them, which is cheaper, or get them sent. Yeah.
Shipping charges can double the price of a book. So in the UK, if you're selling books and doing well in the UK, then you stick to a UK printer. But if you want to ship across to the States or anywhere else, then you need a publisher in that particular country. Yeah. And this is what Amazon through CreateSpace provides.
And in that last section where you were talking about how companies like Amazon, when you register with them, they will even print one-off books literally to order. And I wasn't aware of that, because I tend to think of them as being a digital provider, I suppose.
Yeah, they do. As you say, when somebody orders a book, it's printed and it's sent straight to the reader. I think, you consider the number of books they've got, if you could imagine the warehouse they'd have in each country to have copies of each book, I think they've got a more sensible system, and it does work. Like every other hard copy, I do get proofs, and as I say, the firm that actually sets it all up is in America, and the proof book, it arrives in 2 or 3 days. So I imagine it's printed in this country somewhere, and this is why Amazon works.
So it's quite amazing. So it's allowing you, as a small writer selling small volumes, to still be accessible to everybody worldwide in a way.
Yeah, if I can go back to a point I made earlier, though, it is so easy. Everybody is doing it. What we are trying to do is raise the quality. This is why earlier on I was emphasising the editing, producing a nice cover and so on, and the other details, the back cover blurb, your own little bio. This is all part of producing a book. They're all important, and this is where we're trying to set ourselves apart from the rest.
So people can actually come to you and you'll help them with those areas.
Yeah. Oh yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Now I know you next wanted to talk about public readings, I think, and planning.
Oh, right. Yeah, this is an idea. What we'd like to do, the usual thing is that just to try and raise your profile, you do public readings or you make yourself a nuisance somewhere. So what we're going to try and do is over the summer we'll be at the Artists in the Woods, of course. We'll be selling books there, but we'll also be doing our Wandering Poets thing, and also in Milton Creek if they're running it again this year. But we're going to try and persuade landlords of pubs and places to let us read poems and short excerpts from stories or short stories for free. Actually, we'd like to get paid, but you don't. Hopefully entertain the locals. It doesn't matter how many people are there. And as soon as it's summer and if it's nice weather, we could also do some readings outside and just advertise them on the website. So if you go to the tout.co.uk, you'll probably see where our next event will be. We'd like a crowd to come along, so keep looking for it and hopefully it will happen. The first one, probably, we're hoping to get the first one in the new micro pub at Halfway. So I've been promised an event there. And Peter's putting his two fingers up at me, the way that some people do in the media these days. I won't mention who, you can guess.
No, I just wanted to say that there's a more direct route to our programme for the year. That's Shep Book Fest, which is short for Sheppey Book Festival. But Shep Book Fest is just one word, .co.uk, and that will take you straight to the timetable.
Right. Cool, I've been corrected. Great stuff.
And in the studio with James and Peter there from the Sheppey Writers Group. We've been talking to them all about how they're publishing their own books, a little bit about a competition to find a new author, a book festival, and also public readings as well. And I know next you wanted to move on to your involvement with Promenade this year.
Yeah, right. Promenade 2014. Obviously, it's got a World War I commemoration theme, so we don't have any control over that. And the title of that is War and Peas, and I think the committee decided that it would be a good idea to concentrate more on the home front than the war front, because everybody else is doing that. Now, our involvement as writers in it is that, to tell the truth, most of us were a little bit reluctant to get involved in the idea of the war theme, and it wasn't until the War and Peas theme came along that it sounded a little bit more attractive. So once again, we're only doing the one event, although we encourage people to join in with all the other events that are going on. We're going to be at the Hearty Church doing some readings there, along in conjunction with the people from the Little Theatre. This is on the 18th of September. It's a long way ahead, I know, but it's part of our contribution to the community, I think, other than obviously trying to get authors up to the standard we'd like them to be, naturally. Plug. But the Little Theatre people will be reading some poems from the war. I don't know what they'll be choosing, but we haven't got the programme for that yet. But we will be doing our own reading from our own writings rather than that which you've already heard. I mean, there's so many people who heard the war poems that they're all familiar. Which it's nice when somebody with a good actor's voice can read them. But I think that we can complement that with the with stories that we have from our own take on that. Was 100 years ago. Yeah, it's a long time. And also this at Hardy Church on that time there will be a little talk about the history of the church, plus there will be history of one of the war graves that's there as well, you know. And this is what we're obviously going to be doing, is remembering these people who died in that First World War, and that conflagration wasn't very good. But our contribution to it will probably be a mixture of seriousness and hopefully a little bit of comedy, whether it be wry or dark, I don't know. Hopefully it will be comedy. I know we've got Ruth Partis with us, I hope, doing some reading, so she's always come up with something exciting. So that's what we're doing anyway. And we're also supporting events throughout the year. So sometimes our readings will probably be in relation with the promenade events or the build up to the promenade events on for that weekend. Okay, so that's all I really want to say about it. We welcome you to come along to the Hardy Church on the 18th of September when we do our event. You know? Okay, let's hope it's nice weather, because if you're all outside we're going to have to shout. Right.
Well, I know next you want to talk a little bit about your books, James, I think.
Right, okay. I'm going to do this briefly because obviously I'm getting tired of my own voice. Some years ago I started writing a book called The Zradian Chronicles. I was a little bit embarrassed about it because I had some strange ideas in it. And then I was reading The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is Douglas Adams is a bit of a hero of mine as far as writing is concerned. And I liked his 6 impossible things to do before breakfast. And like Peter here, who doesn't like the idea of aliens with zap guns, things like this, nor do I. I don't like it either. So I put some impossible things into my book. And one of them is matter transfer, which actually happens, but they can't explain it. I also have to have tendrils in a science fiction book as well, so I've got them too, you know. But this is really it's not so much science fiction. It's more, shall we say, science comedy, I think. Science fiction comedy, yes. And I borrowed from Douglas Adams his idea of a paranoid robot, but I don't use a paranoid robot. I use a robot with multiple personalities, who picks up on the song you heard earlier on by Procol Harum, but not by Annie Lennox, which is the Whiter Shade of Pale, which is played at 20 minutes to the hour, on the hour, and 20 minutes past the hour on every media station that the robot can find, just to annoy everybody. The song, I think, is one of the best songs ever written, but then that's personal opinion. But I start off, I've got a trilogy of books for my sins: The Reluctant Hero, The Professor and His Son, and The Doomsday Bomb. And I should be producing these in the next few weeks. Mm-hmm. They're already at the printers, so I hope to launch them, and I'll be back on here waffling about them again later on, I hope. The story is about a no-good lad whose father is a university professor, who actually discovers a strange moon around Jupiter and identifies it as a star station from an alien race. And of course, naturally, the Earth refuses to believe him, which is where I introduce Little Green Men. And then of course, the invasion of Earth starts by run by a despotic president of the planet Zrad, who likes nothing else than a little bit of murder and execution. But it's foiled by this deranged robot, and who adopts a huge family of rodents as its family. Now, next time I come on, I shall tell you a little bit more about the story. But mainly what's happening is that this is being produced by Talp again, and it's being printed locally and produced locally and on sale locally. So I'm proud to be part of it.
Yeah, you'll get it first. You can buy it first locally, but it will be on Amazon,
Yep.
ebooks, Kindle, as soon as I get all the blurbs.
Yeah. Shows it's wonderful being an amateur. I love this.
It's more or less time for them to go now. But before you do, I was hoping you could just go over that information all about the book festival and the competitions and anything else you'd like to cover.
Yeah, certainly. Actually, after James is promoting his books, I was going to plug my book coming out at the end of the year, but I've done my favourite on air trick. My mind's gone blank and I can't remember what it's about. So, if I can remember our website address, it's taup.co.uk. If you go to that, you can find out about all our books, about our competition, and about all the events we've got planned for this week. This year. My mind hasn't recovered yet. Anyway, taup.co.uk.
I'll just say hooroo, as they say in Australia. Just threw that in. And thank you, Daniel, for having us on the program, and it's great to come here again. I always like to have a little session up here. It's a good idea. And don't forget, there's Pigeon Pie and Tales from the Dark Side by James Apps. Remember, Tales from the Dark Side by James Apps. Remember that. That's a book of short stories. And with that,
Oh yeah, I've just remembered the title.
I'm going to sign off. And Peter's remembered his title, so good
Earth
night,
Against
everybody.
Earth.
Yeah.
Well, you're all welcome to come back and talk about that as we said. But I'd like to thank the both of you very much for coming along and updating us on how you're getting on, and of course all about what you're doing as well. It's always good to have you here at BRFM.
Thank you. It's nice being here.
And that is us talking to James and Peter from the Sheppey Writers Group this evening, right here at BRFM 95.6.